This conference will now be recorded.
In the last session, we were talking about accounting basics or accounting rules. What is P&L? What is balance sheet? How profit is calculated and how this profit or loss is adjusted in the balance sheet we have seen in the last session. Now, let us try to understand basic transactions in different other modules. Let's say basic business transactions. Now, when we're talking about basic business transaction, in the previous sessions, we were talking about four modules from FI side. Four modules from FI side, which we represented as GL. Second one is your customer. Third one is your vendor. Fourth one is your fixed asset. These are the four account types which broadly we utilize in SAP or even in accounting. Now, when you start this, first thing you need to make sure that there is something called GL, customer, vendor, fixed asset. Now, GL is all about your GL only, general ledger accounting. Whatever is related to customer, we call it as AP, accounts payable. Whatever is related to, customer is all about your AR, and vendor is all about your AP. Others, please be on mute. Asset accounting is all about AA, asset accounting. Okay. Alright, these are the four modules GL, AP, AR, asset accounting. Based on these four modules only, whatever you do it in SAP is dependent. Whatever the entries that we record in SAP FICO are completely based on these four account groups GL, AP, AR, and then asset accounting. When you're talking about GL, for time being, let us put a question mark here. For GL, for time being, let us put a question mark here because GL includes everything. GL is a question mark because it includes everything. Whatever is there in your accounting, everything is by default part of GL. Why everything is by default part of GL? Yesterday we understood the trial balance is prepared from the general ledger account closing balances, in short, GL account balances. Your trial balance, your P&L, your balance sheet will read the data only from the GL side, not from the customer, not from the vendor, not from the fixed asset, because we understood customer account, vendor account, fixed asset account are sub-ledger accounts. All these sub-ledger accounts are by default connected to main ledger called GL. Anything is updated in customer account will have automatic update in the GL account. Anything that you post to vendor account will have automatic update in the GL account. Similarly, anything that you post in fixed asset will have automatic update in the GL account. If you're talking about GL account balances, you are talking about overall account balances in any organization without skipping anything. Okay. In short, we are putting a question mark just to make sure this is including everything. Okay. Now, so we will make sure that GL account contains everything where there is no exception. Similarly, when it comes to customer account, when it comes to vendor account, when it comes to your fixed asset account, we need to understand what are all this. Point number one, how do we identify a customer? Based on name of a person or an organization. In simple words, whenever you're talking about any customer, one will become a customer only if they're a person or they're an organization. Other than person, other than organization, we don't have anybody as a customer. Same logic is applicable for your vendor. Same logic is applicable for vendor also, because your vendor also either a person or an organization. In short, when you're purchasing any item or when you're purchasing any service, you will be purchasing either from a person, individual, or from a company. Other than person, other than company, we don't treat anybody as a customer or we don't treat anybody as a vendor. Now from the customer, you will do all the sales related transaction. From the vendor, you will do all purchase related transaction. From customer, all sales activities will be performed. From vendor, all the purchase activities will be performed. You're all aware, in any organization, sales and purchases are very critical. Now to handle all your sales, you have to handle all your customers. To handle all the purchases, you need to handle all the vendor account. And similarly, when it comes to fixed asset will have a asset classification. When we're talking about fixed asset has a asset classification. This classification is used to identify whether it is fixed asset or not. Because asset is different, within the asset, fixed asset is a different criteria. From the fixed asset, you have something like land and building. This is something that we all studied in our academics. It is the same logic here. Land and building, plant and machinery, furniture, okay, motor cars, computers, softwares, licenses, etc. Like this, you have different categorization of fixed assets provided by accounting standard. And these accounting standards, whatever the account groups that they have provided related to fixed asset, any asset which is related to this category will be classified as fixed asset. You need to understand, how do I classify my fixed asset? How do I classify my customer? How do I classify my vendor? Because these three are sub-ledgers of accounting. These three are sub-ledgers of accounting called AP, AR, and then asset accounting. You need to be very clear with these three areas. If you are not able to identify whether something is main ledger accounting or part of sub-ledger accounting, it will be very difficult for us. When we say it will be very difficult for us, as we move on to accounting with respect to SAP FICO, all these things are very, very important. If you are confused here, you will not understand anything in SAP FICO conceptually. Technically, yes, configuration point of view, T code and all, it is easy for anybody to understand. But conceptually, from the business point of view, from an organization point of view, how these are used in any organization, unless and until you're thorough or you're clear with the basic fundamentals, practically it is not possible for anybody to understand, for anybody to feel comfortable, confident. Okay. Now the reason why we are discussing all these points is everything is related to SAP FICO. Whatever I'm writing here, each and every point is related to SAP FICO. As a FICO consultant, this knowledge, this understanding is mandatory for everyone. Without this knowledge, without this understanding, it will be really very difficult for anyone to manage in any project, no matter what. Irrespective of your level of experience, whether you claim yourself as a fresher or an experienced candidate, if these fundamental knowledge is missing, it will be difficult for you to manage in your project tomorrow. There's no doubt in it. Okay. Now, we understood what is customer, we understood what is vendor, we understood what is fixed asset. The only point is you need to highlight customer, vendor, fixed asset first. You need to highlight customer, vendor, fixed asset first. Once you are able to highlight customer, vendor, fixed asset, other than customer, other than vendor, other than fixed asset, everything is in GL account. Everything apart from customer, vendor, and fixed asset. Your GL account is basically everything other than customer, other than vendor, other than fixed asset. Meaning, if you are able to identify these three, other than these three, in short, other than customer, other than vendor, other than fixed asset, whatever the account name that you say, everything is part of GL. Whether I talk about cash account, bank account, or any other account, material account, whatsoever it is a GL account. But when I tell Ajay account, or when I tell ABC Private Limited account, XYZ Private Limited account, or furniture, sofa set, LED TV and all, these are all my fixed asset. First thing, you need to make sure when you're looking at any transaction or when you're looking at any account name, make sure you're in a position to identify what it is. It is part of which of these four: GL, AP, AR, asset. Whether it is part of GL or it is part of AP, AR, asset, where it is falling under, you need to identify. If this identification is missing, it is difficult, meaning your fundamentals of accounting is not correct, not clear. You need to rectify that first. Why you are missing and where you are going wrong, where you are having confusions, doubts. You need to sit and then revise everything one more time. Make sure you feel at least confident, comfortable there. You don't need to be practicing thoroughly on the accounting, because you are not going to become an end user, or you are not going to become a data entry operator. You are a consultant. As a consultant, whatever you should know, to that extent, you must be aware. There are no exceptions here. There are no mandatory here. It is required that you have to hold this knowledge. That's it. Whether somebody is telling you or not telling you, this is something that you should realize, because most of you are from the accounting background, most of you are from the commerce background. You should realize without these fundamentals, there is nothing called accounting. You cannot write any journal entry, you cannot understand any ledger balance, you cannot understand any trial balance, you cannot understand any P&L, you cannot understand any balance sheet. All these things are straight away connected to SAP FICO. Keep this point in your mind. Only then practically it is possible for you to know the subject conceptually. Otherwise, technically you will understand. When I say technically, I am talking about configuration point of view alone. As I mentioned, to know the configuration, we don't have to invest money. To know the config, to learn the configuration, it's a freely available content. No need to make any payment to anybody. If the intention is to know only the configuration, how GL is configured, how vendor is configured, how this is configured and all, very well available at free of cost in the open market. Completely free, 0 rupee, zero investment. But you'll have to realize whether you want to know the configuration part of SAP FICO or practical part of SAP FICO in a conceptual manner with business process, business scenario. There you'll have to take a decision first. This is your first level. If you are unable to differentiate this, everything is SAP FICO, I am joining, I am learning SAP FICO, things are not going to work out. You are straight away wasting your money, your time. You don't need to wait after 4 months, after 6 months, whether you get a job or not. Right now, at this moment, you can decide you are not going to get a job. Because this is the market expectation. If you are not up to the expectation, nobody will pick you, nobody will give you a job. As simple as that. Okay. Now, after this, you need to understand basic business transaction. Now, from the basic business transaction, when you're talking about it, we understood GL, customer, vendor, fixed asset. Now, whenever you're dealing anything with customer account, whenever you're dealing anything with customer account, wherever you find customer, it is represented as AR or accounts receivable. Wherever you find customer, it is represented as AR or accounts receivable. When we're talking about accounts receivable, usually what will happen in accounts receivable, you will have sales. In the accounts receivable, you will have sale. Now, when it comes to sales here, when it comes to sales, opposite to sales, you will have something called purchases. You should always read, understand sales and purchases together. You should always read, understand sales and purchases together, because these are integrated, these are closely connected to each other. If you know what is a sales, you will by default understand what is purchases. If you understand what is purchases, you will by default understand what is a sale. You should always learn only one. If you are learning sales, purchases should be based on your sales understanding. If you are learning purchases, sales should be based on your purchases understanding, but don't see sales and purchases separately. The moment you look at sales differently, purchases differently, you are gone there. Because it is the same transaction For one person, it becomes a purchase. Same transaction for another person, it becomes a sale. For you to understand conceptually, you should take a single transaction, the same transaction, same example, same flow. You have to see it the other way around to understand either sale or purchases. But it is always recommended you always understand purchases first and then go to sale. You always understand purchases first and then go to sales, because purchases is very easy to understand, and then based on the purchases, sales is even more easy. On the other way around, if you are coming from sales to purchases, you may find unnecessary confusions there. Alright. Now, when you're talking about sales, usually what will happen to sales? Sales is all about customer. You need to understand sales we do with customer. When you're talking about purchases, purchases you do with vendor. Purchases you do with vendor. Now, when you're talking about purchases, let us talk about purchases, because when there is no purchase, there is no sale. When you're purchasing some material or your some products whatsoever. Only those products, those services, materials you will be selling it. If you're talking about any purchases, you will be purchasing from vendor. When you're talking about vendor, you should understand what are the different names that vendor is represented with. Somebody call it as vendor, somebody call it as creditor, right? And then somebody call it as seller. Likewise, different kind of names will be there in the different industries, in the different organization, different companies. People will be calling it with different names. Please make sure when somebody is calling as a different name, don't get confused. If I am using a term called seller, make sure that yes, I am talking about vendor only, I am talking about creditor only, I am talking about purchases. In short, in the end, this is related to accounts payable. Don't blindly by heart only one name, one terminology. Whenever somebody uses the same term, I will be able to relate it, understand it. If different name, different term is used, I will get confused. It is our mistake. This is called as our mistake. We are not properly prepared, or we are not aware of the subject thoroughly. Now here, when you're talking about purchases, now we are not representing any purchases from the academic point of view. You're not talking about any purchases from the academic point of view. You're talking about the purchases related to an organization in a real-time company. If you take any organization, if you take any company, how this company will perform their purchases, we need to understand. Usually, how companies will do the purchases, there are two types of purchases. One is PO based and non-PO based. When you're talking about PO based purchases, company will create a purchase order. When you're talking about a PO based purchases, company will create a purchase order. Based on the purchase order, your supplier or your vendor will give the goods or services. Based on the purchase order, company will provide, or your supplier will provide goods and services. When you receive the goods and services, you will also receive the invoice. After receiving the goods and services, you will be receiving the invoice. Once invoice is also received, you have to get the approval on the invoice. Once your invoice is approved for processing, invoice will be booked. After that, you are going to process the payment. In short, purchase order, goods receipt, invoice receipt, payment. All the payments are processed either using a cash or using a bank. All the payments are processed using either cash or bank. If it is a cash, cash is subject to daily reconciliation. If it is a bank, bank is also subject to daily reconciliation, but it is not mandatory to do daily bank reconciliation, but you need to make sure monthly bank reconciliation is properly done. So any payment that you are making, either using a cash or using a bank, you need to go for a reconciliation called cash reco or bank reco. In short, cash reconciliation, bank reconciliation, or BRS. When it is talking about, or when it comes to non-PO based, here there is no purchase order. When it comes to non-PO based, there is no purchase order here. What happens here? There is no purchase order. You will directly go to a store, or you will directly call any particular supplier service provider, ask them to provide a service or ask them to provide a product. They will do it without placing any order. Now on this spot, you'll have to give them the money. This is basically the non-purchase order. This is basically non-purchase order. You're not placing any order. In short, Cash sales, in short, cash purchases. You are settling immediately, those are basically non-purchase order. If you are not settling immediately, then you need to have a contract. If you are not settling immediately and you are purchasing today, you are paying later on. You are purchasing today, you are paying later on. These are basically spot purchases or cash purchases. When you're talking about spot purchase, direct purchase, cash purchase, what will happen the moment you receive the material, the moment you receive the service and all, you have to pay to the supplier. If you are not paying immediately to the supplier, then there is a credit line, credit period or payment terms involved there. If you are not in a touch, if you are not in contract, if you are not in an agreement with the vendor or with the supplier, nobody will give you goods and services without receiving the money. When you are receiving the goods and services without money, it is understood that yes, there is an agreement between buyer and seller. You have an agreement, you have a tie-up, you have a contract with your supplier, wherein you both have mutually agreed, understood that yes, whenever I order something or whenever I ask for some material, some product, some service, please provide it and we will pay you within 30 days. Or whatever the items that we purchased in this month, we will make sure that next month 10th we will make the payment of last month purchases, or whatever the item that you have supplied, whatever the services that you have provided, we will take it and we will pay you 30 days from the date of supply, 30 days from the date of delivery. If you give a product, if you give a service today, I don't pay you today. Instead, I'll pay you after 1 month, or I'll pay you after 2 weeks. I'll pay you after 45 days. I'll pay you after 6 months or after 60 days. Now, this is based on the agreement between the buyer and seller. These things are possible only when you have contract agreement with the vendor. These things usually happen when it comes to purchase order. And you would have heard something called FIMM integration here, or P2P cycle here. You would have heard FIMM integration here or P2P cycle here. This is all related to purchases. In short, the moment you talk about vendor, the moment you talk about AP, accounts payable, purchases. When you talk about purchases, vendor, all these things, you need to remember one point. It is related to accounts payable. Point number one. Accounts payable is of two types. One is based on the purchase order. Another one is not based on the purchase order. But remember, in any organization, all the purchases will always take place. Most of the purchases in any organization will take place based on the purchase order only. No purchase order, no purchase in the organization. Any company will purchase any service, any item, any asset with the help of PO only. No PO, no purchase. Straightforward rule. Simple logic in any organization. You should also keep the same points in your mind so that when you talk to the other person, you sound practical. Meaning, when you create a purchase order, by default, you are talking about FIMM integration. The moment you are starting to explain about purchase order, you are representing FIMM integration. In short, this is called as your P2P cycle. This is called as P2P cycle. We are all aware we started from purchases, we started from vendor, we started from accounts payable. Everybody knows I know accounts payable. Everybody tells yes, I worked with vendor transaction. Meaning here we are talking about I know how vendor is created, I know how vendor invoice is booked, I know how vendor line item report comes. These 3-4 points everybody is aware of it. Now that is not called as accounts payable. That is not called as accounts payable in any real environment, in any project, in any interview. Nobody calls that as account payable because nobody wants that information from you. The moment you start talking about, I know we will create a vendor, we will create invoice booking, F-43, FB60, we will pull the vendor line item report, vendor balance report. Nobody calls it as accounts payable. Everybody will understand the moment you talk these points, everybody will know that you are a trained candidate. You completed your SAP FICO training, you are attending the interview. Everybody comes to know because what you are talking is not practically not called as accounts payable. We don't determine this as accounts payable in any project. When somebody is talking about accounts payable, It is basic fundamental. Everybody is aware accounts payable deals with vendor. Vendor is all about your purchases. When you're not purchasing anything, there is no point of any vendor. You're not purchasing anything, there's no vendor itself is ruled out. When there is no purchases, vendor is ruled out. Vendor is there because there is a purchases. Purchases are in the form of PO, purchase order, in most of the organizations, more than 90%. If you make 10 purchases, approximately 9 purchases or 10 out of 10 purchases are based on the purchase order only. Just like that, you cannot buy, I cannot buy, because you are not purchasing for yourself. I am not purchasing for myself. You are purchasing for your company. Meaning, when you are purchasing for your company, somebody must approve your purchase. I cannot decide in my desk, my laptop is not good. I will buy a new laptop and then I'll ask my company to pay money. No company will pay you money. Though it is the asset for your organization, you are not the right person to purchase. Otherwise, I will go purchase Apple laptop, you will go purchase something else, you will go buy a nice recliner sofa set to sit and work. But that is not allowed. Why? You're not the decision taker. You're not supposed to buy directly. If you wanted to buy anything, please place a request. Place a request that this is what I need, or your department needs, or your team needs. Then it will go for approval. Meaning you'll have to raise a request. You have to raise a request. When you're raising the request, this is called as a PR, purchase request or purchase requisition. When you create a purchase requisition, based on the purchase requisition, if your purchase is approved from the management, if you get the approval, okay, this is okay or this is approved to be procured, then only you have to create a purchase order. When you create a purchase order, what will happen? There is a procurement team, purchasing department in every organization. What this procurement team, purchasing department will do? This procurement team or purchasing department, based on the PR, they'll come to know which product you want to buy, which service you are planning to buy for your individual purpose in the organization or for your department, for your team purpose. Accordingly, they will reach out to the different vendors in the market. For example, I wanted to buy a laptop. For example, I wanted to buy a laptop. When I wanted to buy a laptop, there are so many laptops in the market ranging from 10,000 to let's say 2 lakh, 3 lakh. Now you are an employee of the organization. You are an employee of the organization. How I will come to know what will be the budget for my laptop? I cannot give you 10,000 rupees laptop. I cannot give you or 15,000 rupees laptop because that configuration may not be sufficient for the work that you are doing in the organization. Whatever the work that you are handling with, that requires a specific configuration of the laptop. Here again, it is not about a purchase. When you're talking about a purchase, it will have different dependent activities to be considered. That is the reason you are not supposed to think from an academic point of view. From the academic point of view, from a basic fundamental point of view, purchase is something that you are buying from a supplier. That is fine. Accounting entry, purchase account debit, vendor account credit, that is also fine. But this is only at the very, very basic level. Just to recognize, realize, yes, I know this. And after that, you should slowly think how an organization makes any purchases. After that, you'll have to see how any organization is making purchases. For example, you place the order in your purchasing department, your procurement team is discussing with different suppliers in the market. They will get various quotations. They'll get various quotations. Based on the various quotations, they will analyze. They will finalize one vendor. Based on the various quotation, they will analyze one vendor. For this vendor, they will create the order. In short, for this vendor, they will place the order. How they will place the order? They will create a purchase order. The moment you create a purchase order, it is not ready to be purchased. Your purchase order will be having approvals. Your purchase order must be approved. Why your purchase order must be approved? Because your purchase order contains the cost of the product. Sorry, because your purchase order contains the cost of a product. For example, if I say that, okay, I will buy you or I'll get you a mobile phone. I say that, okay, I'll get you a mobile phone. You please go and select your mobile phone, buy a mobile phone. I will pay for your mobile phone, no worries. I'll pay money, you buy a mobile phone. That doesn't mean I'm not telling you the amount, I'm not telling the budget, but I'm telling you buy a mobile phone, I'll pay for it. Doesn't mean you will go buy Apple latest model which will cost you around 1,50,000, right? It is not like that. You should know what is my capability, what is your level. Accordingly, you need to pick a mobile. Meaning there is a budget for everything. Even in the organization, this is common. Meaning I say that I would have said, no, I'll pay you or I'll buy you a mobile phone within 20,000, within 15,000 or up to 30,000 is okay. You buy any mobile phone up to 30,000, I will pay for it. I'll give you as a gift. But that doesn't mean I said I'll give you a mobile phone, doesn't mean that I'll give you the 1,50,000 rupees worth mobile phone. It doesn't mean that I'll give you 1,000 rupees keypad mobile phone. Meaning there is a range for everything, there is a budget for everything, there is a criteria for everything, which every company will have based on their rules and regulations. And these points, these fundamentals is what we need to understand as a FICO consultant, because this is what you are going to work with tomorrow. If I know vendor is somebody who is supplying the goods and services, vendor means vendor account credit, purchase account debit, it's okay. This is revealing that you know the basic fundamentals of vendor transaction, basic fundamentals of accounts payable. Yes, this is revealing that you are okay with basic understanding of accounts. But what I'm looking at, what is your level of understanding on accounts payable in any organization? Tomorrow when somebody is asking you, have you worked on accounts payable? Your answer is yes. Then they might ask you, tell me what is your client accounts payable business process? Most of the times we may end up talking about configuration. Create vendor number range, create vendor account group, create vendor master data, post purchase invoice, purchase credit memo, vendor payment, vendor down payment, vendor report. This is not accounts payable. If you talk this, you will be upfront rejected in any interview. You will get only end user job if you talk that. If you're talking that, you will receive only end user job, not a consulting job, because that is not the consultant skill set. Consultant skill set is different. End user understanding, end user skill set is different. If you are not able to differentiate between what a consultant does, what an end user does, and where you have to show your impact, no point, no worth, no meaning you are learning SAP FICO. There's no, it's a simple time waste. When I say it's a simple time waste, instead of this, you can practice all the transactions related to AP, AR, GL and all. Very well, you get a SAP FICO end user jobs in the market without any training. When I say without any training, if you wanted to know about accounts payable, you don't have to specifically take P2P training. You don't have to get a training on accounts payable. If somebody is getting trained on P2P, if somebody is getting trained on accounts payable separately, it is clear indication that that candidate does not know anything about how to get a job. Even the basic fundamentals also, the candidate is not aware how to get a job. Only those kind of people will go for a training because they don't know any awareness. They're completely zero. They have no knowledge, they have no idea, they do not have any clarity on how you will get a job in the market. What is the current market trend? What is expectation? What you need to know. If you're according to the market standard, according to the organization company's expectations, if you're tuning your skill set, you will definitely get the job, even though you're not trained. Okay. But the moment you do not understand this point, it creates big problems. When I say this creates big problems, after completing the course, after completing the practice and all, you will not receive any call. Even if you receive the call, you will find it difficult. We need to make sure these points are eliminated. In short, this is related to basic idea of purchases. Meaning, when you're talking about purchases, when you're talking about vendor, for the first time when you hear vendor, keep in your mind it is related to FIMM integration, P2P cycle, purchase order. These points should get registered in your mind the moment you look at the vendor for the first time. Don't see FIMM integration as a separate topic. When you talk about FIMM integration, I hope everybody is aware. Without FIMM integration, there is no interview for any SAP FICO consultant. All the FICO interviews will include FIMM integration P2P cycle as mandatory topic to be questioned, to be discussed. If you look at 100 interviews, 100 out of 100 interviews will have the questions on this FIMM integration, and it is basic fundamental related to purchases, related to vendor. And we feel this is something different, something complicated, difficult because of different XYZ reason. If you know conceptually, practically what is it, you don't find it a difficulty at all. You'll find it this is very simple. Why everybody is telling this is tough? Because their level of understanding is different, their approach, their thought process is different, and you have to have a different thought process, understanding level. Similarly, if you reverse your sales, then your vendor will become customer. Your vendor will become customer. Here you have purchase order and you have non-purchase order. Here you have sales order and non-sales order. Whenever you are making any sale, you will get a customer. You will get a customer who is placing the order. Now your customer sometimes may place the order by the product or services. Sometimes your customers will directly come and take the product or services. In short, based on the sales order, based on non-sales order also, you will perform the sale. When you're doing this sales, you have to talk about FI SD integration here. Here we need to talk about FI SD integration. This is your O2C cycle, order to cash cycle. This is basically your order to cash cycle. Now you have dedicated end user jobs on P2P, on O2C, on R2R, different kind of things. Make sure that you know all these points at very high level. Initially on all these points you should have a very high level understanding, meaning you should know what is what. It is not required that you should know in detail at the beginning because you have not even started your training. It's just that overview. You are getting to know what is what. Once you know, okay, this means this, then you will decide, okay, whether this is going to be suitable for me or not suitable for me. Okay, here also what will happen, in every organization you have sales team. In every organization you have sales team. The way you have purchasing department, purchasing team, in the similar way you will have the sales team. What sales teams will do, these sales teams will bring the business to the organization. How they bring business to the organization, they will interact with a different customer, they'll go to different companies and all, they'll say that we are a supplier of so and so product, so and so material, so and so asset, we will give you at a best prices and all. They will go to the different companies and then they will promote the product. These are all the sales team, sales department. If you are okay with that, then you are going to place the order, you will become a customer. Once you become a customer, next time onwards, automatically you will only place the order, you will start purchasing and you will become a regular customer. Now once you get the order from the customer, you need to make sure that the customer order, the moment you get it, you don't give the product and service. Again, there are different points here. Assuming you received an order from the customer, once customer order is received, straight away we don't deliver the product to the customer. You will verify whether this is a genuine customer or not. You will verify whether this is a genuine customer or not. Only after the verification you are going to do the product delivery or service delivery. After giving the product or service delivery, you are going to provide invoice or bill to the customer. After delivering the goods and services, you have to issue a bill to the customer stating this is the value of product that we have supplied or this is the value of services that we have delivered. Please make this much payment on this much on within 30 days, within 15 days to XYZ account. When you give the invoice to the customer, based on that invoice, customer will make the payment to you. Now when your customer is making a payment to you, again two things. Your customer can either pay you by cash or your customer can pay by bank. If your customer is paying by cash, you will have to do cash reconciliation on a daily basis. If your customer is paying by bank, bank reconciliation is also on a daily basis, but it is not mandatory. But by end of month, you need to make sure BRS is completed. Bank balances as per bank statement and bank balances as per the bank main account must be same. If these are same, if these are matching, it is all okay. Otherwise, there is a problem. Now, these points, when you understand in such a way that, okay, When you're understanding basic fundamental, you are feeding in your mind, there is something called FIST integration. It means that there is a sales order. Based on the sales order, we do the delivery. Based on the delivery, we issue the goods. Based on that, we will give a bill, invoice to the customer. Based on the invoice, customer will make the payment. And then you will reconcile whether payment is received or not in the bank. For that, you do BRS. When you feed things in a simple manner at the beginning itself, later on, when somebody is telling integration is very tough, BRS is very tough, banking is very tough, cash accounting is very tough, you don't find it tough because according to you, it is very simple. Because you have added points when it is required at the beginning onwards. From the beginning onwards, whatever the topic, whatever the term, whatever the point is required, that you are keep on adding from the beginning. It is not that BRS is 27th topic. Until I complete the 26th topic, if I'm not talking anything related to BRS, you will not understand anything related to BRS. On 97 or on 27th topic, if I tell this is BRS, BRS means XYZ, ABCD, 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe one day or 2 days I will tell I'll complete the BRS topic. You're not going to understand anything that I know. I know that you're not going to understand. At that moment, you may feel that, oh, this is very simple. If it is so simple, if it is very easy as you're feeling, everybody will be SAP FICO consultant in the market. If you talk openly, if it is so simple, if it is so easy as you're thinking, as I am thinking, in the market, whoever is from the commerce background, accounting background, everybody must be SAP FICO consultant. But unfortunately, not everyone. Not everybody is SAP FICO consultant. Not everybody who is getting trained is becoming a consultant. Reason? There are so many reasons behind it. There are so many reasons behind it. You'll have to keep all these points in your mind. Don't think that I am learning SAP FICO. After 3 months, after 4 months, after 5, 6 months, I will be a consultant. This requires a lot of effort from your side, from my side also. Only then it is possible. If I am not serious about teaching you practical things conceptually, or if you are not serious about learning the things conceptually, result is not going to come. Meaning, you are not going to get the job. If I feel that yes, I am successful, or you feel that you are successful, it's only with you. You have to get the job to make sure that yes, I am successful in teaching, you are successful in learning. Otherwise, it's okay. I am anyways successful because you join my training, you pay money to me, my task is over, my target is achieved. I'm done, my sales are completed. Then what about you? You invested money, you have to get the return on your investment. How do you get the return on your investment? By job. Whether you are capable enough to get the job, forget about getting a job. First of all, have you gained confidence? Have you felt, yes, now I can get the job, I'm able to understand the things, now I'm able to relate practically. Once these things are happening, only then practically it is possible for us to feel confident. When you have that confidence on the subject, on yourself, you will automatically get the job, you will manage wherever you are. If these are missing, it is difficult everywhere. Wherever you go, even after getting the job, you will find it difficult. Reason? It is like that in the market. Expectations are high on everybody. They want you to work on everything. Nobody knows which item, which task, which area, which module you'll have to work once you're in a project. You cannot say that for every time, let me go get training and then come. No. You should have those fundamental logics within you. You should have that skill set within you, even if it is a new topic, even if it is a new module and all. With your experience, with your level of understanding, with your knowledge, with your skill set, please make sure that you can understand, you can work independently even though it is new for you. If that capability is not there, your knowledge is not useful. Meaning you indirectly are by hearting things. Don't tell that only when I practice, only when I see, only when I read, only when I refer the recording and all, I will be able to do it. Not going to work out. Then lifetime you have to watch recordings, lifetime you have to refer the materials. At one stage you have to start thinking individually on your own. When there is a requirement, think from your own. You should question yourself why you are not able to think on your own, why you are not able to make your own example, where you are lacking, why you are getting stuck. You need to identify and then fix those problems. Then automatically everything will fall in your line. You should first identify where you are lacking, why you are not able to understand. And if you are always thinking that, okay, if I watch the recording 2 times, I feel comfortable, okay, but how long you will watch recording? After 10 days, it will be 10 recordings. After 1 month, it will be 30 recording. After course, it will be 150 recordings, 200 recordings. Do you think really that much time, patience is there for everybody to refer the recording? That will create even more confusion. That will put more confusion in your mind because you don't know which recording to refer, from where to where it is to be referred, because every recording will have 1 hour minimum, 1.5 hour, 2.5 hours. Practically not possible, because you have to be alert, you have to be up to date. At least with least scenario, you have to be 1 week lag. When I say 1 week lag, this week whatever I am teaching, or this week whatever you're learning, make sure by end of this week you will cover it. By end of this week you will cover whatever we have done, at least at high level. You don't need to be completely thorough with it, but at least keep in your mind, okay, these are the topics, these are the things that we have discussed in this week. This is something that you'll have to do on your own, because you are the one who is learning the subject, and you are the one who will know where you are comfortable, where you are not comfortable. Okay, in short, this is related to your sales and purchases. Keep in your mind, when you're talking about sales, you're talking about FISD integration. When you're talking about purchases, you're talking about FIMM integration. No ST, FI integration, no MMF, FI integration, there is nothing called sales and purchases. Don't think that this is a separate topic. This is straight away inbuilt. When I say this is a straight away inbuilt, this is something that you'll have to understand in a conceptual manner. Okay, all right. Let me stop this here. The remaining portion we will continue in the tomorrow's session.
This is Sindhu here. I have some questions.